With both Ty and Matt now having to find themselves in a very difficult position within the internet world, or also known as the digital world, we now understand that both Agumon and Gabumon, or at least in this case, Garurumon and Greymon, have merged into one in creating Omnimon for this specific episode to kick things off with a very unexpected fusion from the beginning. However, was the episode worth it? As I want to welcome you all to my Digimon Adventure Episode 3 review entitled And to the Digital World, which honestly left me more confused by the end of this episode than any other. And to kick things off right off the bat, we did see how Omnimon, or at least in this case Omegamon in the original, became such a considerable factor for this specific anime, or at least for the beginning, and I did not like this at all. I think that by the way they went about introducing Omnimon so early in the beginning, by trying to do everything they could to replicate the first Digimon movie, did it only make Omnimon feel as if he truly never even belonged here to begin with, or at least not so early within the third episode of the opening for this specific anime. Now, I am a huge fan of Dioboromon, I am a huge fan of Omnimon, so in the beginning to see how Ty and Matt basically descended on down to Omnimon's shoulders and seeing how Omnimon basically fought against a bootleg Dioboromon was just horrible, because the overall execution and the narrative behind it is fine, but the overall direction of Algomon and seeing the way he actually went about by trying to combat and approach Omnimon was just so terrible, in a sense to where Omnimon didn't do anything other than use his transcending sword to basically whoosh away all of Algomon's attacks. Because the only thing I will say that was pretty dope was from the beginning, as soon as Algomon tried to attack Omnimon, it was considerable to see the difference in power and the difference between Algomon and Omnimon. But this is no Dioboromon. This is still something to look at, to where Algomon tried to incorporate this factor of wrapping up Omnimon with his virus-like tentacles and then shooting out laser beams from his surroundings. It was pretty cool if this had already been established similar with Dioboromon, because I of course do want to see Omnimon within the digital world. I want to see Dioboromon, and to see Algomon, again, nothing against him, Algomon basically replaced Dioboromon, actually took so much away, and even then the Supreme Cannon was in effect, the Transcending Sword was in effect, and from the beginning it was cool to see the overall direction and the overall way Omnimon battled against Algomon. But what's the point? Because we understand the reason why Omnimon became Omnimon was because obviously War Greymon and Metal Garurumon could not get the job done. But needless to say, if you never saw the first Digimon movie, then you would be acceptive of what the heck is happening here, because even though it didn't make sense if you didn't see the movie, then of course it would really allow you to enjoy this that much more. But being the fact that I really enjoyed the first Digimon movie, I didn't like the way they quickly introduced this, because it just felt so rushed and so forced that something like this could have been saved for the series later on, once they have reached, you know, something along the lines of defeating the Dark Masters, and then we have a narrative be introduced to where there is a virus Digimon that's outside of Dioboromon. But needless to say, the interaction between Omnimon and Algomon and the other virus-like Digimon within the internet world was fine. I just think that overall, when looking at it, it just didn't make sense. So here we have Omnimon using his Transcending Sword to pierce Algomon. Algomon loses his mind, he dematerializes, and everything basically fades away. Ty and Matt have the victory over this monstrous virus Digimon, and that's all she wrote on that, because by the end of Omnimon having to conquer this Digimon, we also then observe how Omnimon right then and there not only prevents this massive nuclear warhead from basically hitting Japan, but also saves Ty and Matt at the same time. But even then, it is only then believed that the nuclear warhead was about to be stopped because Algomon is no longer here, but the missile's location was still being tracked, and the missile looked and seemed as if it was about to hit Tokyo, which again mimics the first movie. But the only difference here is the fact that in the first movie, the missile was basically destroyed, whereas here it kept on going because of Algomon's influence. And what's really unique, I think, is seeing the Digivices actually be used here to have some sort of a leeway in preventing this missile from striking, because then the data that was gathered from the location of this missile was actually embedded within Omnimon's sword, and Omnimon used his sword in a very weird way to shoot away the data that the missile had basically tracked down, and the missile from there was then relocated elsewhere into the sea. So that was pretty interesting because we never really saw this go down in the actual movie, or should I mind you, rather than the sea, it went out into space, and it blew up in the atmosphere. It literally detonated in the atmosphere, and this was because Omnimon had prevented this blast from hitting Tokyo, and it was a pretty cool thing to see how people within the world saw this massive explosion up in the sky, and it was thanks to Izzy, and it was thanks to Matt and Tai by executing their Digivices and giving Omnimon this power to stop this that prevented people from dying within the city. So that was pretty cool, and then we go into a narrative to where obviously this blast is still hovering itself over the city, and Matt and Tai are immediately sent flying out, and Izzy spots this. Izzy actually spots how there are projectiles, there are things coming from this blast, which again is pretty interesting to note because Izzy had no idea what the heck was going on, and then all of a sudden Tai opens his eyes and he's at the train station and he's holding his Digivice because this was of course the first time Tai had experienced this, so he had no idea what was going on. All he knew at that point was that he was back within the real world, which is so different in comparison to the original because in the original we saw how all of the Digidestined actually got together and Sora met Tai, Izzy met Kari, like, you know, like everyone got together and they got to meet their Digimon and whatnot. So by the end of this episode, what was really unique to me was seeing the fact that Tai was basically chilling with Izzy and they were walking away discussing the digital world. They were basically discussing the Digivices because they had no idea what the heck was going on, even further having to ask, listen, was that a dream? Because they couldn't believe it. Tai couldn't believe it, Izzy couldn't believe it, and they were left wondering what the heck was going on until by the end, there was further clarity that we were going to get the beginning of Digimon Digital Monsters, with everyone having to get together and meet within the Digi world, which was again a callback to the original, but there was something about the opening of this, the way they carried out the narrative for this, where it wasn't bad. I just felt as if they introduced such a powerful Digimon. Omnimon is arguably one of the absolute strongest within the series, right? And we saw these feats be utilized in the first Digimon movie with Diaboromon. We saw these feats be utilized and executed during the second movie against Armageddonmon, so it was insane to see how quick they rushed this. But even as the episode progressed, we get to see Sora, we get to see Joe, we get to see Mimi, so the other characters are introduced, as of course Tai is talking to Izzy about the missile and why this missile specifically wanted to land in Tokyo and hit Tokyo. So again, there's like this mystery factor behind it because the boys are trying to figure out why and what exactly is the digital world. So no matter what's going on, Izzy is really the brains of this operation because he's trying to figure out a way on discovering the answers behind what are the Digimon, these artificial life forms that have great intelligence that could ultimately be used in this network, in this system, to influence the real world. So what was most intriguing to me about this was by the end of this episode, there was somewhat of this illustration be portrayed that something is going on within the network, something is going on within the Digi world, to where eventually we get to see how this egg came down within the Digi world, and as soon as it hatched, this thing had an influence on the entire city of Tokyo. It was affecting everything. So it was only under the assumption that Algamon was basically defeated, but of course there is another enemy that had spawned within the Digi world that is once again now affecting the real world. It's affecting all of the lights, and the city plunged itself into darkness because of this. So now the boys are trying to figure out a way on what is causing this, so as a means of an end result, they want to go back into the Digi world to get their answers. And with everyone really trying to figure out as to what the heck is going on, there was a cool little Easter egg with Kari, because as she was overseeing her brother basically in distress, there was this feather that kind of flew in the background. You saw the shadow of it, and it's either a pro or a con, and to me this kind of indicated something along the lines of a bird, or maybe even Gatomon having to be a thing here. But as soon as Tai ends up reuniting with Izzy, there is an effect that touches Ty's heart to where he thinks about Agumon, and he ends up going back in the Digiworld, and that's where we get to see the beginning of this journey with everyone having to slowly but surely make their way back into the Digiworld, and that's where the story begins from there. So by the end of all of this, I want to get your thoughts in the comment section below, because to me, I think this would have been better off if they did not introduce the concept of Omnimon and this bootleg Diaboromon, because what was the point of introducing this strong mega level Digimon without the concept of War Greymon, without the concept of Metal Garurumon, without the concept of the prophecy taking place? Because I'm not even sure if they're going to go down the route in introducing Venom Myotismon, the Dark Masters, because there at that point was when we got to see the mega level Digimon such as War Greymon and Metal Garurumon in action. But by the end of all of this, I want to get your thoughts on the overall direction for this episode, the overall narrative, and just how you guys felt about it. Did you guys like the episode? Did you guys hate the episode? I want to get your feedback down below. Again, thank you all so much for your time. If of course you guys are new to the channel, smash that subscribe button, give this video a big thumbs up by slapping that like button down below. Tune back in for the next review, and I'll be seeing you all down in the comment section below. Take it easy, guys. Peace.